two big mistakes that I made in my career. Not investing the time to master the hiring process. Right? As you become a team leader, you got to understand and realize that your ability of being a great realtor has nothing to do with your success of being a team leader. Like, obviously, you have to have success as a realtor to even start a team and so forth. That's just kind of the given. I spent so much time mastering my listing presentation, buyer presentation, digital marketing, all these different things. But man, it was close to a decade into my career before I got extremely intentional with mastering that hiring process. And I got to a point where, man, I didn't even want to step foot in my own business. Like, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the people I was with. I didn't enjoy, so many things about it. It just became a headache and a burden. But mastering that process for any leader, man, I mean, it would have saved me or made me millions more if I would have mastered that earlier on.
Great. Joshua Smith is here today, and I've known this guy, and actually I've been your secret follower for like almost a decade, like just in the background, and we got a chance to meet a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, please come on our podcast. And today's edition is Dominate Your Real Estate Business, top tips from a top producer. Joshua, thanks for being here today, man.
Yeah, no, I'm honored, man. I truly appreciate your support, the kind words, but yeah, I love it, man. I'm massive honored to be here with you.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about building businesses. I know you've built an amazing real estate practice. Excuse me. But let's walk through like your story first. I want the audience to know who you are, what you've done in the industry, and just kind of how you are in the world. Let's start with your story, man.
Yeah, dude. So, I got into the business in 2005. So I was 23 years old. And just like most things in my life, have happened by accident, if you will, right? Like when I got into the real estate business, so again, I was 23 years old. I was managing a health club at the time, and I wanted to open up my own gym, but I was a college dropout, didn't make good money, $1,000 to my name, couldn't get a loan. So I needed a way to just go out there and raise capital and bank capital. So in 2005, real estate market's booming, very similar to like it is today. And at least from an outsider looking into the industry, my perception was everybody in real estate is crushing it, making tons of money. And it just seemed like it'd be the right vehicle where I could just jump into 3 or 4 years, work my ass off, wasn't married, didn't have a family. So it's like, man, I can just go out there and bank at least enough of a down payment, right, to go out there and acquire a gym. And I always say that through that journey, real estate became my obsession and health and fitness is my passion, right? So I just really fell in love with this industry, man. Here in 15 years later, here I am, dude. So, I had jumped in though and just grinded hard, man. I had a great first year, 40 deals my first. Brought me to a capacity, and this is 2005, so there was no DocuSign, there was no smartphones, there was no, so it took longer to do deals, but I hired my first assistant, started my team going to my second year, and I've now been running my real estate team for over 14 years and still loving every day of it.
Geez. What made you stay in the industry? I mean, obviously you're passionate about the working out and exercising and staying fit, but once you got in there, what was like, oh my God, there's an opportunity, or what caused you to say this was my industry?
Well, there was really two things. And it had nothing to do with, working with buyers or sellers and just loving helping, people get into their dream home. Not that I didn't enjoy that. Right. But that wasn't to the core. That wasn't it. Right. Number one, I've never seen an industry in my life that there's more opportunity out there. I mean, you can go from a zero, like I was when I got into business, nothing to my name, right, to in 6 months making more than doctors and attorneys, right? So it's just endless. The opportunities are endless, and it's the most level playing field out of any industry, right? Like, all right, I'm a 5'10", uncoordinated white dude. So if I had a dream and a vision of going pro in the NBA, maybe I'd make it, but it'd be tough to do that for me, right? Where in real estate, man, it doesn't matter how tall you are, how short you are, fat, skinny, how thick of an accent you have, like nothing. It all is just based on your commitment. Right. So, that aspect, man, I've always loved that aspect of it, but then the time that it really clicked is when I started my team, realizing the impact that I could have, is a team leader, right. Bringing in agents, that I could mentor, that I could coach, and really at a high level. Not only could I coach them on the health and fitness aspects, that's a huge part of our business, our core values, and right, every week everybody has to set a personal health commitment in our organization, and we really push that as well. But I started having teammates come to me just in tears. They're like, "Look, man, I've lost 30 pounds. I'm in the best shape I've ever been, and I'm also making more money than I've ever made." And I just been able to have that impact, man. It was so combination of those, a combination of I could go out there and make the money that I wanted to make with endless opportunities, plus the impact that I could have was much larger than the health and fitness space, right? And I just, the combination of those two, man, it was just game over for me after that moment.
That's cool. You are known in the industry as having the #1 podcast, GSD mode. Why just start that? What do you focus on in that? And then I want to kind of dive into what you've been up to besides the real estate world.
Yeah. So, it started originally, so let me just kind of take a step back here with this. So there's really, again, it's kind of twofold of how it started.
Sure.
Number one, I was asked to be on a lot of podcasts. I was quickly became one of the top agents in the United States and the country, and won a lot of awards, accolades, and so forth, and got asked to be on a lot of other people's podcasts. And I'm one of those where it's just, I'm a creator, man. I'm like, all right, these guys are doing good. I enjoy it, but like, if I'm gonna listen to podcasts, why don't I just have my own podcast and handpick my own guests and go out there and grow it? And I also, with a lot of the interviews I was being interviewed on, I just didn't enjoy the podcasters talking over you or whatever. I'm just like, dude, from a top producer to a top producer, I just was confident I could do a better job with interviewing and pulling that content information out there. So but when I started pushing a lot of content out there, because I had pushed out about 400 videos before I actually technically started a podcast on YouTube. Nice. And that had started from, when I first got into the business, dude, before I got licensed. I've always been one of those where I'm like, dude, I'm not going to try to figure this out on my own. I've always had a coach or a trainer or whatever. So I knew the power of having a mentor. And even when I was in real estate school, man, I started interviewing top local realtors in my market. And then when I got licensed, I've always been obsessed with that, man. I'd jump on airplanes, because when I started, man, there wasn't YouTube, there wasn't podcasts, right? Yeah. So I'd jump on airplanes constantly, go visit these, we're talking, it's agents in the top 10 on the planet that would give me their time and let me take them out to lunch. So I always wanted, though, because so many people, so many top producers gave me so much of their time. I think that's why you see so many top producers also being willing to give their time, because they know that they would have never made it if it wasn't for that. So, but I got to a point where I was so busy, and then I had my family and so forth, that, dude, I couldn't get to the point when people would reach out to me, hey, can you take me to lunch? Can I pick your brain? It was such a massive amount of agents reaching out, and I wanted to be able to help them and answer their questions and so forth. But it was like, but with running my business and with my kids, it was like, I couldn't see my kids then. So I had to make a decision. Yeah. So then it was just kind of like, all right, well, just send me your questions and I'll make you a video. And then let me throw that on YouTube, right? Had several hundred videos on there, before the podcast officially started. And it's just continued to explode from there.
That's crazy. So when somebody asks you a question, you're like, that's episode 297 and watch this YouTube video. Is that kind of your move?
Yeah. I mean, that's how it started, right? And we're still doing that today. We still get a lot of feedback with questions and still try to answer as many questions as I possibly can on there and give tips and give value. I mean, look, dude, at the end of the day, real estate's changed every aspect of my life. And I feel 100%, I feel that it is now my responsibility. Like, I owe it to our industry and the other realtors to give back to them. And it's not that I owe it to them, it's that I owe it to my mentors that helped me.
Sure. When you look back at your journey, because you're in the practice, you're doing it every single day, you have a team, you're kind of in that top 10 of people in the industry. When you look back, there's always a turning point. There's this moment in your life where everything clicked or everything changed or everything got really good. For you, when was that? And what did you learn in that moment? And what would you share in terms of value for the audience today?
Yeah. So, and this might be different than other guest answers that you've had on, just because, it's one of those things where I've always done a lot of deals, and I don't want to sound cocky or arrogant with that. Look, guys, like, I've worked my ass off. Right? Like I'll get agents of like, how'd you get your first, client under contract within 4 days of the business? I'm like, well, I did 12 open houses in my first 4 days. I was doing 3 open houses a day. I'd work, right? It was just, I'm that guy that I have no problem working 18, 20-hour days, pulling all-nighters. Like I love the hustle. And not that I don't try to do that today with a family and so forth, but at the time, right? So, even when the market crashed, I was able to pivot and go from being a top traditional agent to a top REO agent and so forth. The big turning point for me was about 4 years into the business. I got to a point where I was making more money than I'd ever even fathomed that I could be making in this industry, because you don't know what you don't know and what's possible. Right. But man, I was more miserable than when I was broke, man. And what I realized at that moment that I set the wrong target. And ever since then, once I've gotten clarity on the right target for me, that's when the game's changed. And what I mean by that is, in the beginning, it was, as I mentioned before, like I just was here to stack cash. Sick and tired of being broke. I needed to raise money. And so I was just focused on making money. Money is great. Yep. But when you get to the point when you're working 4 a.m. to midnight, my wife and at that point I had, was married now. I had my first kid. We live half mile from the office. I'm going 4 or 5 days in a row without seeing them. And I'm in my mid to late 20s at this point. And I literally thought I was going to die of a fucking heart attack, dude. Like just chest pains and so much stress. But it was because I didn't set the right target of why am I doing this? What does this look like? And so now how I approach business and what that moment and that learning lesson taught me is I look at a business as a vehicle. Like none of us live to work. We work so we can go out there and live. So a business is a vehicle that allows you to live that life that you want to live. And it's like, look, if I'm willing to give this 5, 10 years of my life, how long it takes to create a successful business, well, that business must eventually reciprocate and give back to me. So I had to get really clear on that. And it changed not just knowing of every day what I'm building and why I'm building and why it's important, right? But then from a daily decision factor. So I had to boil down, what are the things that are most important to me? Well, eventually for a business to get back to me, man, I don't mind the work, but I want to have freedom of location, freedom of schedule, as well as I want to make the money that I want to make to create the opportunities for my family and ultimately make the money that I want to make and be able to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. Right? That to me, long-term is what I want with a business. So I also had to start changing my lead generation, my marketing, how I set up, everything had to allow that future thing to become possible, become a reality, right? But then once I got that clarity on, again, what that end game goal is, right? Yeah. I had the right target, but I could start making the right daily decisions, because all success is at the end of the day is the right daily decisions made each and every day, all throughout the day, that compound over time into the success you want to create. Failure is just the opposite. Wrong, small decisions, made each and every day throughout the day. Well, how do you know if you're making the right decision or wrong decision if you don't have clarity on what that end game vision looks like? And I think that most people, you got 99% of humanity that ends up dying they're on their deathbed and they have this massive shoulda, woulda, coulda laundry list, and they die with a heavy heart of regret, right? Yep. So got to spend time, man. Reverse engineer life. Okay. Hey, when I'm on my deathbed and I'm reflecting my life, how do I want that conversation to go? What do I want to have accomplished? What are the things that I regret? Right. So when we start long-term, big picture, long-term, creating these building blocks down to a daily basis of and even a minute by minute basis of what I need to do to create that reality. And, I find that nobody has a motivation problem. It's a clarity problem that they have. Burnout doesn't exist, man. It only exists when you don't have clarity, right? And lack of motivation only exists when you don't have that clarity. And that's why I say it became a game changer. That's when it got a hell of a lot of fun.
Huh. Interesting. And is there another time in your career where you kind of redid everything and shifted? After you had that first epiphany, I need to have the right goals. I want to have a right vision for my life. There probably is another time that everything shifted. What happened and when was that? And what'd you learn?
Yeah, I always say that there's two big mistakes that I made in my career, which we just talked about one of them. The second one was not investing the time to master the hiring process, right? As you become a team leader, you got to understand and realize that your ability of being a great realtor has nothing to do with your success of being a team leader. Obviously you have to have success as a realtor to even start a team and so forth. That's just kind of the given, right? Yeah. And I spent so much time mastering my listing presentation, buyer presentation, digital marketing, all these different things. But man, it was close to a decade into my career before I got extremely intentional with mastering that hiring process. And I got to a point where, man, I didn't even want to step foot in my own business. Like I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the people I was with. I didn't enjoy, so many things about it. It just became a headache and a burden. And, but mastering that process for any leader, man, I mean, it would have saved me or made me millions more if I would have mastered that earlier on.
I think if you're listening and you're a leader, every single person on this call listening right now identifies with exactly what you're talking about. If you've ever hired people, it's one of the hardest skills to master. It's seriously hard.
Yeah. And then most of my friends are team leaders or business owners, whatever. And most people have the same problem, but I can tell you there's only a select few that invest the time to master the process. It's not that anybody can figure it out, but it's just, what are you going to do to go out there and master it? And if people, because you get to a point where your success is no longer dictated by you. You can only carry the weight of the company on your shoulders for so long. It gets to a point where it's all about your people, man. And how do you identify those people? How do you know the right people for you? How do they know their core value fit and so forth? Man, it's amazing to me. Well, I shouldn't say it's amazing because it took me so damn long to master it too.
Yeah.
But going through that, if I could have, man, even before I started my team, I would have invested the time to master that process.
Yeah. Well, one of the funny things about me is I've hired over 6,000 people to work for our company, and I still don't feel like I've mastered it. And it's just tough. Hiring people is just tough. Let's dive into, you mentioned digital marketing. I think it's an important topic today because so many people are going through that transition. They used to generate business from client events or referrals or their sphere of influence or networking at some, group or events. And so the entire industry is going, you've got people who are doing really, really well because they already had a presence online and they already had that figured out. And then you have everybody else who's trying to catch up. Let's talk through what are your best steps for people who need to get in that digital game like you did so many years ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing that I wanted to say there is thing that I know for sure. And there's a lot that I don't know for sure, but there is one thing I know for sure. Is that it works and nothing doesn't, right? So you can have massive success without getting into digital marketing, right? I mean, if we lined up the top 100 agents on the planet, they'd all have different lead generation strategies and so forth, right? So, but it's about identifying what you want to do, what you enjoy doing, what you like doing, where your ideal client is, and so forth. And that might be networking events, that might be open houses, that might be through repeat referral business, right? But if it is digital marketing, right? Because it just comes down to, man, like, you've got tactics and you have strategy. If you only focus on a tactic, you're going to have pain for the rest of your career. But if you learn to master strategy, if you understand it and you master strategy, boom, it will create wealth for you throughout your business and it'll be a game changer for you, right? So, and I'll give you some examples of that. Like, I'll have people that will come to me like, I copied your Facebook ad and it's not working for me, right? That's just them trying to replicate the tactic itself, not understanding the entire strategy. So you've got tactics and strategies. So the first thing is identifying, okay, what is the tactic? What is the medium that I'm going to utilize? So, a tactic would be going after for sell by owners, direct mail, YouTube, Facebook, whatever that may be. Because again, there's not one facet to same like digital marketing is almost like same prospecting. Well, there's a lot of different methods of prospecting, a lot of different methods of digital marketing. So identifying, what it is that you're going to go after. So what I look at first with that is getting very clear with your ideal client. This is where it really starts. So who is my ideal client? Where are their eyeballs at? What's important to them and so forth, right? It becomes really important, you guys, because all sales is pain and pleasure. People have the pain that they're experiencing and pleasure they want to get to, right? So you want to show up and educate them through your marketing, through your messaging, that you are the guide to get them from pain to pleasure. Right. So I got to make sure I'm, if my ideal clients were 18 years old, I might be marketing on TikTok. My ideal clients aren't 18 years old. They're not on TikTok, right? So I'm not there, right? So getting very clear, getting on who that ideal client. So an example, my ideal client, like we specialize we specialize in what our ideal client wants, which is single family detached real estate. People that are 20 to 42 years old that already own a home that are looking to move up. So second time move up buyer. 20, 42-year-old married couples that have young kids at home that are moving, live in the suburbs on that 250 to 450 price point. Right? So then we can start breaking down, okay, well, where are they moving to? Where do they live? Where are they moving to? Right? And then getting to know their pain points. Well, I know that they're living in a, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,200 square foot house. They have 2 kids now. They're busting out of the seams. They have no home office. They have nowhere to put guests, right? Plus, the kids are getting the age where they want to be able to let their kids go roam in the neighborhood and ride their bikes like they did when they were kids. Maybe where they're at right now, they don't feel quite confident with that. Plus, they're more established in their corporate careers or so. So there's that ego kind of emotional component of they want to pull on that they're proud of, that they can feel good about themselves with. Plus, they want to have that same thing to show up to their parents, their friends, and so forth. Right? Love it. So I know what their pain is, and I know what their pleasure is. Right? They want a 2,500 plus square foot home, 3-car garage, 4 plus bedrooms, 2.5 plus bathroom, swimming pool. Right? And price increase more that 350 to 450 price point. So when it to digital marketing, then let's just say Facebook, and when I say paid Facebook ads, I'm speaking to Facebook and Instagram, just because they're ran out of the same platform. I'm making sure that what they want, right, that style of home is showing up though so it's showing eyeballs that are experiencing that pain, right? And then we can, I don't know how deep you want to go into funnels and different things, with marketing funnels and so forth. But at the end of the day, then that's when it comes to the strategy, it's getting clear on that ideal client. And then really all strategy is what is my effective plan for this tactic? Yeah.
I think the question is like examples of programs that you've built. So the challenge that real estate people have, and I'm guilty of this too, is I needed to build a program, right? And I need to have a paid program, an email program, a text program, a call, I need a whole digital marketing situation. So I just wanted you to talk through like what your program would look like for the audience so they could consider their own program, like a divorce program, a move up buyer program, a first time home buyer program. Like the holistic approach to digital marketing is probably something that you could really add value to.
Yeah, man. So, and I love this stuff, dude. Right. So, and you guys, and this is where, look, mastery happens when balls aren't on you, right? This stuff, it's technical, which I know most of us that are in this space aren't tech savvy people. Look, before I got into real estate, I never had a computer. I didn't, I'm a millennial, but I'm like at that very far end, almost the cutoff of not being a millennial. So it's kind of that foreign age where like technology wasn't quite infused yet. So this is stuff that I have to learn constantly on myself. But this is why I said earlier too, like I want to look at things that I enjoy doing. Like here's an example. I hate cold calling, right? So I won't, I'm not going to go read a book on cold calling. I'm not going to jump on a training on cold calling, but I will for digital marketing all day long because I love it, right? So I'll jump on while my competitors are watching, I don't know, Cobra Kai or some bullshit on Netflix on a Friday night, right? Like I'll be binging, free YouTube. Cause here's the cool thing about today, you guys, like all the information, like between YouTube and then a site like Udemy, udemy.com, where you can pretty much learn anything for $10. Like it's either free or $10 to learn any of this stuff, but there's a learning curve to it, right? So then from there, we got to reverse engineer it. Before you start any type of marketing or any type of prospecting or anything, you've got to have the sales machine built behind it, right? Like I always look at like the marketing, the ads, that's kind of like the pretty shell that goes on top of the car. Well, what's underneath that shell, man? They've got the infrastructure, they got the engine, they've got all of that. Well, you got to have that. So, one thing that we really push in our team is before we'll allow, let's just say a brand new agent that joins our team, before we want them going out there and lead generating, like there's 5 things that we need them to do. And it might take 3 weeks to 30 days, right, to get these down. But number one, you have to have your tracking system in place. Like you got to per lead source, you got to be tracking how many leads, how many conversations, appointments set, conductions, clients, closings, know what your cost per acquisition is, how much effort goes into it. So tracking system set up, and we're old school, like it's all Google Drive, it's all free, Google Sheets. Josh, I don't know how to build Google Sheets or Excel sheets. Neither did I. Went on Udemy and for $10 and a Sunday afternoon, now I'm a freaking whiz, right?
Yeah.
Like, you got, if you can't be resourceful enough to overcome that little obstacle, you probably should just drop out of this industry. Okay. Number one, your tracking system. Number two, you got to have your CRM dialed in and set up, right? When I say dialed in and set up, right? Your CRM, you should know per lead source. Okay. When that lead comes in, how am I working every lead per lead source? How am I working when they become a client? How am I working them in this system? Right? When they go under contract, how am I working the system? When they become a past client, how am I working the system? Your CRM is the number one most important asset to your business. There's not one top producer that isn't a freak about their CRM, that doesn't know what, use and abuse it. Right? And the best CRM is the one that you're going to go out there and use. I'm a little biased because I own my own CRM company, which the cool thing with that is like all my follow-up campaigns and drips and 1,000-day follow-up campaigns and emails and texts and autoresponders are already built into it. So perfectstormnow.com, if I'm allowed to give a shameless plug there. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter which one it is that you're going to use. It's the one that you're going to spend the time with, invest, master is the best one for you. But you got to get that set up. Thirdly, your listing and buyer presentation, right? Like get that set up, get that dialed in, know what you're going to present. Because if you look at those three, if you're not tracking your numbers, knowing what's working and what's coming in, you don't know how to scalp and so forth. So you're never going to have success with lead generation. If you can't have, if your CRM's not set up, you're never going to have high conversion with those leads. You don't have your buyer listing presentation set up. You might convert them to an appointment, but you're never going to convert them to a client. The fourth thing is your past client and sphere of influence strategy in place, right? Because that's one of the biggest faults of real estate agents, but it's you just need to get it dialed in.
That's a whole other podcast, guy. That's a whole other podcast.
And then the fifth thing is market knowledge, right? I mean, spend time, man, jump in, spend an hour a day in your MLS, spend an hour a day driving neighborhoods and getting to know the neighborhoods and your product. And you got to know the area that you're servicing and then the product that you're servicing. Like nobody has a lead generation problem. They have a lead conversion problem. I've yet to meet a real estate agent has a lead problem. I mean, every human being out there, that's a potential lead, right? Like not the issue. So you got to have that machine in place. I'd spend 30 days interviewing every divorce attorney out to lunch that I possibly could, finding out what are the pains, what are the questions, what are the pain points, what are they going, what's keeping them up at night, right? Then I would go to everybody that I've known. We all know a ton of people that have been divorced. I go to everyone that I knew at a good enough level that I could ask those same questions to, and then I'd put together a guide right, of that would help them answer those questions. So when I'm starting my Facebook funnels, right, I'd be offering a free guide, or if I'm calling them, hey, Joshua Smith, you're at my home group, just so you know, this isn't a sales call. I'm not here to sell you anything. I just, my records indicate that you're going through a tough time, and I just wanted to reach out and, first off, say, I'm sorry that you're experiencing this tough time, and share your story. I think it's really important to attach, like maybe you went through a divorce yourself, or when you were a kid, your parents went through a divorce. So then I could sit there and say, when I was young, my parents went through divorce. I know how hard that is on families. And look, my heart just goes out to those that are going through the same situation. And I've got some resources that I think really help you. Again, I'm not here to sell you anything. I know you're going through a ton. I've got this great guide that I put together by interviewing 25 divorce attorneys, by interviewing 100 divorced couples on what their concerns were, what their fears were, and their answers, response to those questions, and the feedback that I'm getting from a lot of people that are going through situations. They find this really helpful. So I'd love to send it to you if it's something that you think of value, and I'd love to send it to you. What's the best email to send it to? Or you can have them opt in at it. Right. And then the follow-up becomes of, hey, want to check in with you. How, like, I'm going to be a resource first. So we do this with for sale by owners, right? Like, so we know with for sale by owners, and this is why you got to get to know your ideal client, right? So when we look at a for sale by owner, because a for sale by owner is different than an expired, different than a probate, different than, right? So it is virtually impossible to talk anybody out of their belief system. Right? Like if you are a Trump fan and I'm a Biden fan, not saying I am, not political, I'm just using this as an example. No matter how long I talk to you, you're probably not going to change your belief system, or vice versa, right? Or if we're different religions or whatever. Like people have to self-discover this stuff. right? So for sell by owner, why are they listing their home on their own? It's because they think the vast majority, it's not because they don't like realtors. The vast majority is because they are extremely confident they can do it on their own. Not only do it on their own, they can do it better, right? So they have to, on average, it goes through about a 6 to 8 week discovery process that they have to go through to realize, well, shit, this is much tougher than I thought. Maybe I need a real estate agent. They've got to self-discover that, right? So we have a free for sale by owner resource plan that we go after for sale by owners with. We'll do free open houses for them. If anybody's interested in the house, we give them that person and they don't owe us a commission. I kind of created it where you also get an email every day, or just over a week. And because when I was writing the book, after I got done with the book, I started thinking, here's another tip I wanted to include, and, right. And that are even more relevant to like the time that we're in, right. Like one of the video tips, which is a 20-minute video tip outside the book that you all get is, which is a question that I get a lot, especially now, during coronavirus and stuff when people are struggling, which is, man, like I need deals now. Like I had X amount of deals, like business right now. So, one of those is the 4 quickest ways to clients. So if you need a client in the next 48 hours, well, here's the best way to go do that, right. And so forth. So yeah, that was intention with it.